Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's NBA Sharp Betting Breakdown here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. I am your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Thursday, January 2nd, and we have a 6-game NBA slate to break down. We got some news right before the pod started that professional poker player Drew Johnson is dealing with a broken water heater in his house, so he is not going to be joining us today. It is going to be a solo show. I will run through the 6 games. And then I got a great question sent to me in my inbox yesterday, and it was asking about how to review and how to handle an NFL future that is on the brink of cashing like a 400 to 1 and a 300 to 1 ticket where someone has $100 with like 35,000 waiting on the other side. So should they cash out? Should they initiate any hedges? It is in an award market in Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL. So rare time, I will switch over and talk about the NFL, and I will talk about awards betting. But generally, we will run through today's 6-game NBA slate, figure out where our action is, and then get rolling. Yesterday was a fucking dominant day to start the year. 9-3 across the board, plus 4.5 units, hitting a crazy middle with the Sacramento Kings by 6, holding a Kings minus 5.5. and a 76ers plus 7. Where did I want that thing to land? Right at the 6. We got so lucky. The 76ers were up 9 points with just over 3 minutes left, and then the Kings would score 15 straight to win the game. Landed on the 6. Cash Kings minus 5.5. Cash 76ers plus 7. Cash the under 224 in that game, and then walk away with your fucking trophy belt in your hands, sweeping the board and saying that is how you start the calendar year as it turns to 2025. All right. Like I said, 6 games on the card to break down. It starts off with the Boston Celtics visiting the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, key thing to note for the Celtics here is we often talk about schedule spots and what the teams have been through. Here it's about what's coming next for the team. The Boston Celtics are on the front end of a road back-to-back where you play the Wolves and then you play the Rockets. Talk about 2 of the most physical teams in the NBA and taking them on head-to-head. That's going to be Wolves and Rockets for this Celtics team. So they go ahead, they list Kristaps Porzingis questionable. They list Jaylen Brown questionable on the injury reports. And then we see the line move from 4.5 down to 3.5. So it really, really, really depends on this injury news and which way Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis end up falling. Now, given that this is the front end of a back-to-back, I think we're going to see Porzingis out and potentially Jaylen Brown in. It's really hard for me to tell, and this is capping very much an injury and an injury report and who's going to rest and who's going to play and understanding the schedule spot. So I have no bets on this game. Of course, if those guys were to play, maybe if we even get 1 out of 2, Celtics minus 4 is likely the right side to be on for this game. I believe there's a 3.5 elsewhere. I will look it up really quickly. However, it is so hard to know if you are on the right end of that news, and therefore placing a bet there is more just risking and hoping that you get the injury report correct. So there is a -4, -108 at FanDuel and DraftKings, which is the best available lines. Otherwise, 4.5s across the board. That's the right side to be on. I definitely prefer Celtics over Wolves in this spot. However, I don't want to do that without Porzingis and Jaylen Brown. Total in that game has also stayed pretty flat or gone down a point and a half. So 221 was the open. We are seeing 220.5 to 219.5 varying across the board. 220.5 at Circa, BetMGM, and then you get the 220s, FanDuel, DraftKings, Bet365, and then also a few 219.5 starting to pop up. Fanatics, Bookmaker, ESPN Bet. I'm watching Bet Rivers right now change the screen to 220.5 as well. So seems to be a pretty flat total there. I would expect the total is very much dependent on the injury news as well. All right, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers taking on the Miami Heat. This has been, in terms of line movement, a Pacers spot and an under spot. this aligns with what we've seen recently out of these teams. Pacers have been playing very good, and they've been playing very good on both ends of the court. Most notably, their defense taking a real stride forward. Against Miami. Miami is second night of a back-to-back here, staying at home. And I really don't know if I want to fade them. I watched the Pacers and Heat previous 2 games this season. I remember them distinctly in my mind being so surprised how seamlessly these 2 teams scored against each other. And so Miami, they ended up splitting. I think one was a 10-point win for Pacers or 9-point win for Pacers and a 13-point win for the Miami Heat, strictly based off memory. And they landed 229 and 235. So seeing the total at 227 start to move down, I was like, I distinctly remember being so surprised at the scoring efficiency that these 2 teams had against each other in both previous other spots that both went over the total. And so do I care about how 2 games went in determining if the line movement is appropriate and is worth playing into? I so much more value the line movement. I would so much rather still play in under 227 for this game. However, that was non-existent after some movement, and I wasn't going to buy into a direction that I didn't love in the market late in the market. I wasn't going to come in when it should have been 227 and still play it at 225 and a half. Now we see it at 223 and a half. Yes, holding a 225 and a half would still be plus EV and positive expected value, but just based on what I've seen this season, and we talked about this yesterday, where do you start to weave in some of your opinion? Where do you start to invoke some of the way you're seeing things? And this would be one that just cautioned me to stay away a little bit. But I believe Pacers are the right side. I believe the under is the right side. The line movement has indicated the same, but I also believe this game is a complete mind fuck, and we're going to end up seeing the Miami Heat put up 123 and cruise to a victory and ruin all market directions. I would be very little surprised if that happened in this game. I'll quickly check on the injury report. We have Terry Rozier back. We know he missed yesterday's game dealing with the suspension. Questionable Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, and out Aaron Nesmith. So I do expect Jimmy Butler to play, and then that would mean we'd have a very similar injury report to all previous games with these teams right now. Chip says, great call of the Pistons. Nice 400 profit. Hell yeah. Love to hear that. Pistons game saw Jaden Ivey go down on a stretcher. We will have to talk about that next time the Pistons play. However, they're not on the card today, so we will move on. But that was a great win from yesterday. Next game up is the Clippers taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder in OKC. And OKC has a pretty daunting schedule coming up. Let me pull that up and read through it. They have the Clippers tonight. Then they take on the Knicks at home on the second leg of a back-to-back tomorrow. Then you go Celtics, Cavaliers, Knicks again. So Clippers, Knicks, Celtics, Cavaliers, Knicks. That is a gauntlet of a next 5 games for OKC. We talked about this with Boston in the beginning. Sometimes it's not what have you been through, it's what do you have up next. Where are these look-ahead spots? Where are potential letdown spots? Where are ones where you really need to step on the gas because you have a hard schedule upcoming? This one screams OKC spot to me. This one screams this is the one that OKC takes handily, and then we might see them start to falter against Celtics, Knicks, and Cavaliers. But against a Western Conference opponent, against a team in the Clippers that has been overperforming as a Western Conference opponent, you expect the OKC Thunder to never take teams lightly. That is one of their staples that makes them so successful. They show up, they show out for every single game seemingly, except for maybe the NBA Cup Finals. Where were you, Thunder? Where were you? Thought you were in Vegas. Maybe you were in Vegas too long prior to the game. Line open -9, moved to -9.5. Line opened to 18.5 and has moved down to 218. I agree with both market directions here. I definitely agree with the under if this is going to be a limited possessions game because of the way the Clippers slow down the pace. OKC highly prioritizes winning the possession battle in these games. We're looking across the board. We see a lot of 217.5s also for that game. 218 here at Circa, 218 minus 114 at FanDuel. Then we have 217.5 DraftKings, MGM, Caesars, Bet365, Fanatics, Bookmaker, all hanging the 217.5. So I do believe this to be an under spot for Clippers Thunder. I just believe the prices are right for this game, probably spread and total, and that's why we're seeing half a point of movement in each, but not much more than that. And we've said it on the show before. You get half a point in front of an NBA total, you need a little bit more to have a positive EV ticket. In some instances, that would work on a spread. You have it relative to a key number. You have a 6.5 when it moves to 6. You have a 5.5 when it moves to 6. Those are beautiful to have half a point. In an NBA total, you would like to have more than half a point. All right, where are we at? We did 3 games so far, 3 games left to review. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm seeing 251 people right now in the live stream. We appreciate it. Every single day, Monday through Friday, a live stream here on the Advantage Podcast, breaking down every single NBA game, betting angles, where our direction is, where our best bets are, where's the market speaking to us, and where are the best lines that are still possibly playable. Of course, a lot of this is the reflection of the Whop picks. When I reflect back and say a plus 4.5 unit day yesterday, I'm talking about where I released my picks in a Whop text locked chat. You could find that link in the episode description in the podcast or the YouTube video or the link in my bio on Twitter. I do offer 50% back in the first month simply for leaving a review. And I also offer a little bit of a risk-free policy in the sense that if we ever do have a losing month, I will make the next month completely free. So I know a lot of people charge for picks. You might win, you might lose. I never felt good about charging for picks, but I have always remained very confident in my approach and understand what's become industry standard to make a little money on the content side. So therefore, I have started to release and sell some access to my picks. If they don't perform, I will not charge for them. That is the basis of where we're at right now. 76ers take on the Golden State Warriors in Golden State. The 76ers are coming off of a second leg of a back-to-back where they took on the Sacramento Kings last night. That was in Sacramento. Now they're in Golden State. Those two stadiums are like a 40-minute bus ride from each other. So there's no travel here for the 76ers. They likely stayed in a hotel right in between those two, knowing they had that back-to-back, and I assume that's very common throughout the league, and there's probably a very NBA-oriented hotel kind of halfway point between the two, because you get the Sacramento Golden State back-to-back or 2 games in 3 days situation, the same way you get LA, the same way you get New York, Brooklyn, the same way you get the Texas Triangle or the Florida Duo. So for those reasons, there's no travel despite the second leg of a back-to-back. And we started the show off by explaining how the 76ers were up 9 with 3 minutes remaining, and then would let up a 15 consecutive point run, and then would lose by 6. The 76ers are coming off 4 straight wins prior to that. I believe 8 of their last 11 prior to that. They were playing without Joel Embiid yesterday, their closer, who should return for this one because they knew it was a back-to-back set. So Joel probably in for this game. I will pull up the injury report. He is listed as in already. Probable, Draymond Green. Questionable, Curry, Kyle Anderson, Kelly Oubre, and out, Gary Payton, Brandon Podziemski, and KJ Martin. Of course, on this show, we call him KJ Martin Jr. I actually think you couldn't design a better situation for the Philadelphia 76ers. If you are going to have a late collapse in a game and a bad loss, the best way to get over that is on the road, where your home fans aren't going to scream at you, playing the next night where you could just turn the page and get over it quickly and do it in a spot where you get your star player back and you don't travel. All of those line up for this to actually be a bounce back spot for the 76ers. Now, in the line movement, we're seeing it go from 2.5 to 3. We're seeing the Warriors take a little action, probably just fading what happened yesterday to the 76ers, probably buying in to saying the Warriors are a great home team and they've been struggling, so maybe they come out with an emphasis performance tonight. I don't want to buy into any of those angles at all because I think we can get a no let up, hungry 76ers team because we have all of the ingredients for that cooking in the pot right now. A team on the road, a team playing really well, a team getting healthy and getting its star players back, and coming off of a terrible loss that is a complete anomaly. We removed those games from our sample set moving forward about how we cap games, and that starts tonight. So, like, yes, I cash Kings tickets, and I've had this conversation on the pod so many times, and I'm usually explaining why a ticket that I didn't win, I'm actually counting theoretically in my head as a win, even though it doesn't reflect in my bankroll, because maybe there was such a bad beat that we can't overly focus on the results. We have to focus on the 95, 99% likely outcome of that result. There was probably north of a 90% chance the 76ers up 9 would end up winning with 3 minutes left. To definitely over 90%, probably over 95%. So we need to remove these anomalies that happen. There was a game that I always go back to where the Dallas Mavericks played the Cleveland Cavaliers last season, and we were in Cleveland, and the Mavs were taking it to the Cavs until Max Strus hit 5 threes in the final 2 minutes, including a 60-foot game winner. 60 feet from further than half court. He throws it up, and it goes in. And it's just like, okay, if Max Strus doesn't go 5 for 5 from 3 in 2 minutes, including a 60-footer, then this is a Mavs spot. So moving forward, you go Mavs win. Moving forward here, you go 76ers win. So how does 76ers win influence the next day that you're betting it? I don't know if you want to go run to the wall and fade them against a Warriors team that's been really struggling. I find this to be actually a good spot for both teams to get right, and then you're choosing which one you think actually does get right. Not enough movement from a market sense to make really any side worth it for me. The total has dipped from 218 down to 217, 218 and a half down to 217. So definitely some movement towards the under. I do believe that makes sense when you get Joel Embiid back. He is such a good offensive player, but the pace slows down notoriously. You get way less fast break opportunities because if you just think on the surface of it, when the 76ers go to start their possession, they wait for Joel Embiid to lumber up the court. So I know he scores damn near a point a minute. I know he's one of the most efficient and offensive players we've had in the league in years. However, when he plays, the total goes down because despite the efficiency possibly rising, your pace dramatically decreases. So just an interesting thought to think of Joel Embiid, despite being able to score 30 on anyone and 70 on certain nights, that he's actually a player that influences an under. Last game of the card, the Trailblazers take on the LA Lakers. We have Trailblazers +9. That has been the line the whole time. Moments of 8.5, moments of 9.5. I believe at FanDuel right here, it's been 9 the entire time. Total was 225 and a half at open. We still have a 225 at Caesars, which you could play towards the under if you'd like. 223 and a half, a bunch of other places. 224 at Circa, 223 and a half at FanDuel and BetMGM, 224. DraftKings, Bet365. Offshore is laying 223 and a half and 224s. So if you could find that remaining 225 at Caesars, that's probably one of the spots that you can add on in this card, being a full point and a half above other spots in the market. Caesars, Lakers, Portland under 225 on my screen. Although I will say the odd screen that I use sometimes is late to update Caesars. So maybe Caesars is already a point lower and wouldn't be worth playing. But if the 225 is still there, you could take a stab at it. Another game I have no bets on, but I'm very, very excited to watch. I'm very excited to watch the continuation of Austin Reeves taking over the playmaker duties, taking over the point guard duties. Huge usage bump for Austin Reeves. It's a great fit to bring in both Shake Milton and Dorian Finney-Smith. You heard DFS start talking about it in the way that he's going to be sent back to being more of a corner three player instead of an above the break three player. And he's actually excited to re-embrace that role. So to hear that and to know what he's going to be asked of playing next to LeBron, it is a no-brainer that I think this is going to be a phenomenal fit. I think it's going to be so perfect because he wants to assume the role that the Lakers want to put him in. And the Nets were trying to like a little bit outsize his role. And he knows what he's done best. And he referenced his time playing with Luka Doncic. Huncho Jack says, did you do Nets versus Bucks? Yes, we are at the end of the card, Huncho, so you can go back and listen through. But Nets Bucks over 218 is my only bet on a side or total on this entire card. I know I just went through a lot. I know I said these are possible angles. This is what the market says. I'm holding off here. I don't agree with this. The one spot I actually bet on this card was Stephen Curry stuff too, was Brooklyn Nets versus the Milwaukee Bucks over 218.5, which you could find here on FanDuel with a minus 112 towards the over. And I will look elsewhere. 219 DraftKings, Caesars, 219.5, Circa Sportsbook, BetMGM, Offshore 219 or 219.5, Bookmaker 219. So the only remaining 218.5 is this one right here at FanDuel, or ESPN Bet also has one. But if you're looking at ESPN Bets and looking at a minus 115, I would rather play the 219 at minus 110 or minus 109 at Bet Rivers and save yourself 5 or 6 cents for half a point on an NBA total. Would be better in this case to pay less vig and get the better line. Over Nets Bucks 218.5. Did I do Nets Bucks or did I just skip over it? I actually feel like I skipped over this one. Am I going crazy? Oh my God. I didn't talk about this. I totally skipped it. There's a message from Ian in the back being like, yo, you just skipped Nets Bucks. My bad. And Huncho Jack, you are correct. Holy shit. I apologize. The spread has been between 13.5 and 14. The sharper books were laying 14, so I thought the 13.5 were the side that I was looking towards because this Brooklyn Nets team can remain competitive, but knowing the sharper spots throughout to 14 was not the spot I wanted. The spot was the over the whole time. Over 218.5. Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks, full unit. Nets playing with D'Angelo Russell and possibly getting Cam Thomas back for this game. Let's pull up the injury report. Cam Thomas in. Giannis Antetokounmpo probable. Chris Middleton probable. So D'Angelo Russell also in for the Nets. On the other side of that Dorian Finney-Smith trade is D'Lo coming back to Brooklyn, being traded from LA to Brooklyn twice in his career. That is hilarious. Being repaired with Sean Marks. That is phenomenal. And so D'Lo is one of the biggest overplayers in the league. We talk about Dame being a big overplayer. We talk about D'Lo being big overplayer. Why? He is Swiss cheese on defense, and he's fucking good at offense. He knows how to push the pace. He's a good passer. He is willing to be a floor spacer, and he is garbage on the defensive end. So for those reasons, D'Lo ignites massive over movement. And there we see it go. 219 on the screen right here as we have the live odds. Good thing I got to it eventually and could mention that like 6 times before the odds changed on us. I still would play this. Maybe you're playing it for 3/4 of a unit instead of a full unit at this point, given the movement. However, this is the spot. This is the spot on the card that is my favorite. This was the only bet that I placed side or total was over Nets Bucks. Now 219. The other things that I bet were in the prop markets. I bet Giannis Antetokounmpo over 28.5 points. It was a correlated bet. The whole market was at 30.5. DraftKings was laying at 28.5. I picked it up for 0.2 of a unit. Obviously, if I have some overexposure on the game, I don't want to overly expose myself on a singular over prop. So I did that for less than I normally would. And then a combination of Steph Curry props, lying a half unit across Steph Curry props, under 4.5 rebounds, going against a team that should have the bigs down low for the majority of this game and should have Tyrese Maxey running a blaze. So Steph Curry trying to keep up with him. Steph Curry probably his best cardio in the league. Maxey might be one of the fastest in the league. So that should be a fun little matchup to watch tonight. Given the likely dip in pace with Embiid and the fact that the bigs were going to be there, we faded Steph Curry's rebounds. So under 4.5 rebounds at plus money. I would play that out to minus 110. And Steph Curry under 28.5 points plus rebounds. You could play that out to like minus 115, but that was a minus 110 bet. So half a unit sprinkled across Steph Curry props, 0.2 of a unit on a Giannis over on his points, full unit on the Milwaukee and Brooklyn over at 218.5. That is the full card for today. We are going to go over an NFL future in 1 second. Let me pull up the screen. Let me switch my screen and let me pull up the exact question that I got. And let's go through it. Now, when I got this message yesterday, the first line of the DM was so perfectly put. This message came from Sam, and Sam said, I know you're not really an awards market bettor, but I would be interested in your thoughts on what to do here. So like, here we go. Sam's actually in the chat. Here to listen about my futures. Go PS2 because he's got Patrick Surtain Defensive Player of the Year. Let me pull up the odds so that we do this appropriately. Okay. So Sam DMs me and said, I know you're not really an awards market bettor. Thank you for noting that. They're the worst fucking things in the world. But I would be interested in your thoughts on what to do here. So immediately when I got that message, I was like, oh, I'm way more apt to approach that than just Fiddle. How would you hedge? Blah, blah, blah. I'll 99% of the time answer those two. Or just like, yo, what's your favorite futures bet right now? I get those DMs all the time. And I'm always like, just nothing. Literally nothing. Sam then writes, I have $90 down on Patrick Surtain to win Defensive Player of the Year. 3 of those tickets are $25 at 400 to 1. So 3 separate tickets, $25 each at 400 to 1. This is important context. And a $20 ticket at $300 to 1 for a total of 90 to win 36K. Slight incorrect math there. That would be 95 to win 36K. Let's negate the $5 difference. He's now the odds-on favorite between minus 200 and minus 230. We see at FanDuel right here reflects one of those minus 230s on the board. Sam writes, the cash out equity is $17,000, but I hate cashing out because they don't give you fair value, and the true value is $25,000. So Sam was very hesitant to accept a $17,000 cash out across his tickets when he knew true value of his ticket, knowing that you have a $36,000 payout on one side, understanding what the implied probability of that current position is. You could determine what your likely true value of your ticket is and say it's about $25,000 worth to have these $95 invested in Patrick Surtain futures. So while I hate awards betting because awards betting has a terrible, terrible market hold, you're betting into 15% market holds and you are tying up your money for 8 months of the year, let's say. That is so bad in general. So bad. It will long-term crush you unless you're really good at futures. But generally, you get to the end of the futures where you have $95 on a long shot ticket and you're like, how do I hedge this? Do I cash out? And so you're starting to stack on top of things, already betting into a market with a 13.5% hold, 15% hold. That is so much harder to beat because a normal game market is less than 5%. You look at a money line market and you shop around, you could probably bet into 1% holds. When you open these middles, you're buying into negative holds that immediately have positive value. So I rarely bet into these markets. However, you have a Patrick Surtain ticket. Fuck what I'm saying right now. That is so much better than avoiding these markets to have one ticket for 95 that can cash out for 36 or that can potentially net $36,000. So despite my lack of motivation to enter these markets, there are situationally spots where you can do very well, and I know certain people do. So let me just preface it with that. The second thing that Sam has here going for him is that he has multiple tickets, 3 tickets down at 25 to 1 and 1 ticket at $20 at 300 to 1. So what Sam can do is use multiple tickets to his advantage and decide, okay, I don't want to cash out fully for 17,000. I don't want to initiate a hedge because who are you betting in an awards market right now? Is it simply a 2-man race between Pat and TJ Watt? Or is Myles Garrett actually someone worth mentioning here? Myles Garrett's statistics are so much better than TJ Watt's across the board for defensive players. But TJ Watt plays on a playoff-bound team. Myles Garrett plays on a team with 3 wins and is going to be top 5 in the draft. So how does the voters determine the award with one guy who's clearly been the better defensive player in Myles Garrett, but TJ Watt having a more successful team around him and a better standing in the team standings? Does that give him the edge in the award? Can we invoke the Josh Allen versus Lamar stuff and go back to last year and say Lamar mainly got the MVP last year because of the best record situation at the end of the year? So maybe it really is TJ Watt. Maybe it really is Josh Allen and MVP this year. It is so hard to know that I actually don't think necessarily hedging in this situation is the best idea, because I don't feel like this is a clear 2-man race despite what the odds tell you. What if the Steelers have a terrible showing and they end the season horribly? TJ Watt's been dealing with some injury stuff. And what if Patrick Surtain and the Broncos end up having a colossal of a series of events where they lose to the Chiefs, maybe Miami wins, maybe the Bengals win, and they're out of the playoffs entirely? Are we then running to the well and saying Patrick Surtain should be the defensive player of the year as a shutdown corner on a team that didn't make the playoffs? Or are we going right back to TJ Watt and going best team, one of the best players on the best team and of candidates? So it is so hard to know. So the important thing here to note is that Taylor has multiple tickets. It is not a binary decision whether or not you cash out. This would be one of the few examples where cashing out actually makes some sense. If you have $17,000 waiting for you on the other side of a $90 ticket, that could potentially be one of those situations where, okay, I don't have the liquidity and the capital and the means across multiple sports books to properly put down $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on TJ Watt right now. So in order to properly hedge this, you need to be able to put $10,000 into the market and go bet it on TJ Watt across multiple sports books on his future. Or do you cash out because like you don't have the liquidity to go run and put $10,000 across various sports betting accounts and then immediately putting those? And is that the proper decision given that Myles Garrett has the best stat set and he's sitting there at 20-1 third candidate? So this is one of those spots where I'd say I would ask yourself this, Sam. It's a long-winded way of breaking this down to tell you I don't really have much advice, but if the $17,000 changes the way that you are going to move through life for the next 6 months plus, right? If this is, wow, I could straight up pay rent for the next 6 months, nothing to worry about, get all my Christmas stuff, like everything I need, all my bills are paid off, student debt is gone, and it's not via maximizing EV, but it's about maximizing your life right now, then I would do it. Then I would pull the plug and I would actually do it. If $17,000 vastly helps your betting bankroll, I would consider doing it. If it's I can start immediately putting this money to use in other spots and getting it back down to work for me. If it's I'm just going to withdraw this money and I'm going to maybe sit on $15,000 and yes, it would be nice to have, but I won't see any immediate impacts in my life, then I would ride the tickets. And then I would hope to win the 36K. Because you're in a great position to win that 36K. But it's also not a binary decision where Taylor's getting to where I'm saying, let 2 ride and cash out 1. Let 1 ride and cash out 2. Right? Do the math between the 300-1 and the 400-1. What's giving you the best equity to cash out versus let ride? That could be literally done mathematically with a objective formula that shows black and white what's the correct one to cash out if you were going to do it. And then you could, it's like I said, it's not a binary decision. You could choose both. You could choose somewhat of a cash out. You could choose somewhat of a cash out. Then you could take some of that money in the cash out, and then you could go put it into the hedge market, right? So you could cash out some, hedge some, ride some. You could just hedge. You can just cash out. You can just ride. It is a fucking unbelievable ticket to have. Well done to Sam for having 400-1 futures on PS2. Holy fuck. That's unbelievable. If you do bet futures, a good strategy to split the bet across multiple tickets for situations like partial cash outs if necessary. Sam, can you comment in and say, is that the reason why you did it in the first place? Because I was thinking this, 2 thoughts. Did Sam intentionally split these tickets up to give him this flexibility on the back end? In which case, brilliant. Yes, this is something that I would occasionally do, betting these long shot futures myself. Even if you're like, you could use that for betting dumb fuck parlays. You could like your 8-leg parlay. But if you're thinking you're going to start looking at cash outs after the first 6 legs win, then like note where the start times of those games are and also put in a 6-leg parlay for less so that you don't have to just binary decision, yes or no, do I cash out an awesome 8-leg parlay that's doing well? It wasn't awesome to begin with. Or do you then hit on a 6-legger where maybe you were going to put $100 on these parlays, maybe you put 80 on the big one, 20 on the smaller one, and you're getting that big boost by getting the smaller parlay to hit. You often splitting bets is misunderstood, and there's some reasons to do it, especially in a futures market. Now, I didn't know if this was intentional because sometimes in this insane long shot futures market, that's actually where you quickly get limited. That's actually where the book will say, we won't take $100. Like, I didn't know if the book was going to take $100 on a 400-1 ticket, because that's typically where you are low risk for yourself, but high liability for the books is generally where you quickly get limited. If you were betting this minus 230 on Pat, you could get down $10,000 probably pretty easily. But if you're looking at a 400 to 1, it's harder to get down $500 on that. The limits conversation is one I really don't like to have. I think it's so convoluted. I think it gets so many people agitated for no reason. I think there's reasons for it. There's reasons against it. There's so many nuances within that. There's often people who don't realize it's about liability more than risk. And so I didn't know in a future sense if Sam was doing this because he wasn't allowed to submit a $100 ticket, so he had to split it up. He says, yes, I thought getting the 400 or 300 to 1 was off market. It should have been closer to 40 to 1 at the time. Getting immediate CLV and being a cash out ability to cash out on a position that rarely wins Defensive Player of the Year. And then he also chimes in, FanDuel typically has max bet amount versus max win amount on futures markets. That is exactly what I'm saying. They are very quick to put those kind of alerts up and those to be the places where you see things get limited. So I really don't know the right answer to this, but I hope that we soaked up the information, grab a mop, as Mr. Norman would say, about how to handle a PS2. First off, one of the best fucking nicknames in the game. Patrick Surtain, who wears number 2, and you call him PS2. His father also played in the league, so he's also the second Surtain to dominate the NFL. And now he's so elite. The way that I would look at this, to summarize it all up, if $17,000 vastly affects your life, then go life over grinding out every EV edge. We do this to be able to afford things in life. So if this ticket at 95 to win $17,000 does that for you, then you've made it home here. Do you hedge partially? You probably can on TJ Watt, but I would be a little bit worried about that. Second thing is, I would do this action, whatever you decide to do here, Sam. If you are going to partial cash out, if you are going to partial hedge, I would do it before this weekend. Now, when Sam asked me this question yesterday, I said, can you give me 24 hours and I'll give you a detailed answer on the podcast. I will look at the stats. I will look at the market. I will see where these guys are priced. And I knew it wasn't going to impact in that 24-hour window because the Broncos were going to play the Chiefs this weekend. We don't have any Thursday games this late in the year. And if the Broncos do not make the playoffs, if the Broncos lose to the Chiefs backups, if Carson Wentz throws a touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins right in Pat Surtain's face, and the Broncos don't make the playoffs, we are not looking at a 230 anymore. He might still be the odds-on favorite, but it might be a 150. And then you're sweating things. And then you're rushing to figure out a hedge. Or then you're accepting an even worse cash out. So I do think timing-wise, going into week 18 right now is an important time to make these decisions in the next 24 to 36 hours. Sometime significant, like a good chunk of time before that Broncos game starts so that you're not like running up to the minute with it in a sweat. That'll do it for today's show. Like I said, in terms of the bets that I have actually placed, it is a Brooklyn Nets and Milwaukee Bucks over 218.5, a Giannis over, and 2 Curry unders. We will be joined, hopefully, by professional poker player Drew Johnson tomorrow. I was expecting to have him. I also knew that I had very limited action across the board, so it would be nice to have Drew because I wanted to know where his bets were. I do know that if he took the Pacers, even though that's one that scares me, the Celtics on the spread have been moving out, but the injury report looms large. The OKC spread and under makes some sense, but the numbers are very fairly priced. And the Philadelphia 76ers is probably an under spot, but 217 is well priced after the movement. The 3 is not a place where I want to get involved. And Lakers, Blazers is another probably Lakers spot that is well priced and a game I am excited to watch. The last 2 days have been plus 1.3 and plus 4.5 units. Let's hope today brings in another plus 1 unit or so. We have limited action across the card. You don't expect to sweep. Give me 2 out of 4 and winning my best positions. I'll take it. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to Ian in the back. Thank you to Sam for asking such a great question. He also says, my wife is pushing me to cash out 2 of the tickets for $10,000. Like, that's a legit comment that matters. I don't have wife. Can my dog explain to me the benefits of cashing out for $10,000? And she's like, you know how many treats I can get with $10,000? So I don't have these other life tendencies looming over me. So you have to consider a lot of these things. It is not always a straight black and white. What's the EV answer? Sometimes it gets convoluted and we get into this gray zone, and it is fun to explore those occasionally. So again, thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to Ian in the back. Thank you to Sam for the question. Some words from Patrick Beverly saying, y'all subscribe to my podcast while you're asking all these questions.
Y'all subscribe to my podcast while y'all asking all these questions.
Don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you're a kid, listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents.
Subscribe to the pod.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod, man.
Good, those are good.